Greetings everyone, this is Rambling Collector here, and welcome back for another book review. For today's video, we're going to be once more diving into the Dead Souls universe by R.I. Polsgrove, with the final two books of their Shadows Soul series, Shadows Allure and Shadows Triumph. And to be quite honest with you, on a personal level, I'm very happy for River, for the fact that once more they have accomplished and finished another series. This one being one of their Dead Souls universe series. So I'm proud of them for that, on a more personal level. But this one is going to be fun for doing another double review. And quite frankly, it'll be fun to cover each of these individually. They both have their strengths and weaknesses, but I will get to talking about that here in a little bit. For now, let's get started, shall we? So first up, we have Shadows Allure, Book 4. And to start off with, Shadows Allure introduces an interesting new character in the form of Valeria, the daughter of the bastard son of William Hallward, Quinn's father. So for those of you who do not know, or who have not read Quinn yet, during the time period that Quinn was turned into a vampire, his father, William Hallward, apparently had a bastard child outside of wedlock. And this bastard would go on to actively rule the Hallward household, long after Quinn had killed his father, William Hallward, and after the death of Quinn's mother and younger brother, and also his newborn younger sister. So at that time, the Hallward name is down to a simple bastard child, legitimized, and Valeria is the daughter of said bastard. But we do not just follow her. We instead follow Emil, Quinn's loyal right hand, on his solo quest to gather resources and recruits for the vampire army. Along the way, he does meet Valeria, and quite honestly, his future interactions with her after finding her in a church of all places as a nun, which, to be honest with you, I did not expect that at all. But his and Valeria's interactions, as well as their romantic venture, did make me smile a lot, and it made for very fun reading. Even when the characters went through their own forms of angst and self-sabotage, which seems to be a theme with a lot of the romantic partners within this series, I swear. Self-sabotage is a common theme that we see a lot with the characters who are romantically involved within the Dead Souls universe, and more often than not, I love how oftentimes it feels perfect, it feels fine, and then something comes along and rears its ugly head, forcing them 2 steps back. But it definitely makes for some interesting drama for a little bit, until at the very least they can finally at least plainly talk to one another about how they really feel. But more than that, we also are introduced to Waverly, a new character, and they were definitely a very fun inclusion, not only with their interactions with Emil and Valeria as a whole, but also with the reveal of their identity as non-binary. For context, Waverly seems like an average guy, right? Charismatic, charming, a possible romantic rival for Emil, though that does not happen. At the end of the day, Emil and Valeria are the end goal, but Waverly did have a very strange request from Emil, that being a very large house with a walk-in closet full of dresses. Now this is like the very first hint that, oh, they might be non-binary. And that is even further clarified throughout both this story and Shadow's Triumph, is how we see it. But in my opinion, it definitely made for a very fun little reveal of another non-binary character within the Dead Souls universe after the introduction of Lance. But I loved the interactions with all these characters. I loved the bit of romantic drama here and there, but also how more centered this was, in my honest opinion. It's hard to describe because I do like how this one was more or less its own standalone piece compared to the last 3 books. They were all setting the stage and then continuing the story of the war against the werewolves, between the vampires, them growing their power, things of that nature. We'd seen how things had gone with Heather and Thea with their groups, both the rises and the very heavy falls. But here we see Emil going on a solo adventure to gather resources. And honestly, the progress that was made here was very slow, but at the same time, it was very impactful, is what I feel. Now, let's move on to Book 5. And now, here we have Shadow's Triumph. This one I feel does a very nice job of wrapping up the series as a whole because it brings all the various characters together, consolidating their resources and preparing to strike out against the wolves, whilst also building more of an underground society, expanding upon world building and providing the characters a sense of community and further camaraderie. Here we see nearly all the characters together. We see Quinn, Thea, Alice, Waverly, Emil, Valeria, and so many other characters that have been introduced throughout the series, all finally gathered together in one place, consolidating their power, giving their reports, before spreading out to continue the war against the wolves. But, in between all of that, we see how they decide to continue expanding upon their base of operations. Rather than it being a simple church, they decide to go further and further underground, building an entire underground city and network of tunnels, not only to gain a better advantage against the wolves by slipping underground and being in a constant place of darkness, that way they can move their resources despite the daytime. It's really fun to see all the non-combatant vampires get a chance to actually do something else that they can enjoy, whether it's just building their city, creating new jobs, doing a whole economy even. It's interesting, to say the least. I will warn now that this book is very much a slow burn, but it feels to me that the further you go, it does pick up the pace quite a bit. But even so, that slow simmer of just everything coming together does work fairly well. Now, I will say, beyond that, we also get to see the introduction of characters such as Lyra and Sebastian, who were introduced in previous books, but here in Book 5, they get their own chapters proper. And it's fairly interesting to see their interactions with various characters, especially Lyra with Quinn, and how well these two seem to mesh together, especially with their ideas of using torture as a means to comfort themselves, or as a way to gain control, as a way to practice having control for once. Now, Lyra, I won't spoil too much of what she gets up to, but it does have me very intrigued to see what her story holds, whether her actions that she commits in this book will come back to bite her, how people will find out, things of that nature, but also Sebastian. If anything, Sebastian is definitely a character I have grown to hate throughout the Shadow Soul series, especially in Book 3, his introductory novel, where we see this twisted man betray a group of vampires who had taken him in, all for the sake of gaining control and power, and now he has a whole miniature army of vampires under his own command. So it makes me wonder, will Quinn and Sebastian eventually meet each other, have full conflict with one another? Will it be a war of vampire versus vampire? I'm very curious to see just how Sebastian will have his comeuppance for all of his twisted deeds that he has committed throughout this series. Especially for Book 3, I am not happy with him still surviving after Book 3. But it just goes to show that the author is very good at making characters that you can either love or hate interchangeably. Sebastian is definitely a character I fully hate. Lyra is interesting, though, for the fact that she has been traumatized so deeply that her emotional center is just completely shut down. She operates on pure logic and instinct, and that is a very terrifying combination, especially with what she gets up to in this book. But in between all of this, between the build-up of both the world building as well as the characters being introduced. We do see a bit of Quinn's imposter syndrome flaring up again, him mentally arguing with his father, which is a common thing that we see not only in this series but still in Dead Souls proper. And this is definitely a moment when we see Quinn's imposter syndrome just flaring up, despite the fact that people heap praise upon praise towards him. He simply can't accept it. And to be honest, that was incredibly painful to read. Just having all these people cheering for him, and yet he simply cannot believe it. He is constantly screaming at himself about how he is not this great person, he's not this great leader, that all of them are fools for believing in him. And it breaks my heart, honestly, to see him still this broken, even now in the Dead Souls universe proper. But let's keep going, shall we? So, bit of a random thought spiel here. Haven't done one of these in a while. If anything, I do like how the author has specified that if there is a taste for something that you're looking for, whether action and adventure, deep-rooted horror, or even just romance, the Dead Souls universe does have it all. And from some of the things that they have told me, they have a lot of different stories in mind of what they want to do with this universe, which I am very excited to see how that's going to wrap up. But more than anything else, this series, I feel, the Shadow Souls series in general, is very much a slow burn type of series. If anything, because of the fact that it operates in the middle between Into the Darkness and Dead Souls proper, it's very much what you could describe as the middle child of this universe, but at the same time, it is fairly interesting still because it does expand more on the lore between the War of the Werewolves and Vampires, how it fully starts, how it continues in the new world, how Quinn evolves as a character, or becomes a leader. It's very interesting, all in those regards. But more than that, introducing characters that we have seen in the Dead Souls series and explaining their backstories. How did Quinn meet them? How are they here now? Things of that nature. There's a lot of questions from Dead Souls proper that do get answered here in Shadow Souls. I will say, however, if you're looking for very fast-paced, this can have that, but it is more so a slow burn type of series. It's definitely one you would want to take your time with, at least in my opinion. But at the same time, the fact that it is a simmering type of series, where everything is slowly building up, where everything is being crafted to this point, makes you wonder what is in store for the rest of the series. What sort of conflict, what sort of actions will we see here for later? And even then, I feel like this entire series is less so about the war of the vampires and werewolves at times, and more so about the people that Quinn meets and interacts with, the sense of community that he unknowingly builds within himself and the people around him, giving them a sense of camaraderie, of purpose, of unifying against a very common threat, and being able to stand up and have the strength to face it, not only with their own problems, but also against the very serious threat of the werewolves. It really makes me excited to see if we'll get more for the werewolves proper, as far as the Dead Souls universe goes, but also just seeing how much more of the world there is for Dead Souls to expand on. But that alone is just my thoughts. Now, I feel personally comfortable with giving Shadow's Allure and Shadow's Triumph both a solid 8 out of 10. It can feel very slow, but once it finds its grip, it will not let you go. There are many ways that it will continue to pull you back in again and again to find out what's going to happen, whether it's a certain character, a certain plot thread, of romance or intrigue or even combat. There's always something that will keep pulling you back into this series, no matter what. So overall, I'd say that these books are very, very good. Are they slow? Yes. But are they worth it? Absolutely. And if you stuck around to the end of this video, thank you guys so much for watching. It really means a lot to me that you listen to this crazy man's ramblings from his little library. And if you did like this video, feel free to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, what you think, and if you like what I do here, feel free to subscribe. If you want to see more of R.I. Polsgrove's works, I will post a link to the playlist at the end of this video, but if you want to see some of the other independent authors that I've covered, I will leave a link to that playlist as well. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now, and I will see you all in the next book review. Have a great day, fellow readers.